There's a lot of talk about how this mass deportation plan is going to be carried out. President-elect Trump said that the military is going to be involved in some capacity. What do you see as day one, your priority? How are you going to carry this out? What do you need for resources, and what is it going to look like?
Well, of course, there needs to be mass deportation operations. Like I just said, we have a historic illegal immigration crisis on the southern border where millions of people enter the country illegally and were released. And you look at immigration court data over the last decade, nearly 9 out of 10 people who claim asylum at our border will end up with an order removal from the immigration court because they simply don't qualify. So, of course, when you have millions of people entering illegally, 9 out of 10 get order removal, we have to execute those orders. If we don't, then you might as well shut down the immigration court. Might as well just take border patrol off the border because there's no consequences. You can't demand due process and not obey the final decision of that due process, so that's what we're going to do. But the priorities from the day one, and President Trump's been very clear about this, the priorities out of the gate are public safety threats and national security threats. And there's plenty of them to seek out and arrest and deport. You look at the stats from the Biden administration compared to the Trump administration, the removal, deportation of criminal aliens from the United States has decreased by 74%. So it's a target-rich environment. We have plenty of criminals to go look for, public safety threats.
And sir, if anyone has been following your career and your approach to border enforcement, this doesn't come as a surprise. In fact, there was a conversation that you'd shared with New York Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez that sort of sets this up nicely, plans for the future. We've played this clip several times for our Newsmax viewers, but we'll play it for you now and get your thoughts on it today. Let's watch.
You recommended family separation.
I recommended zero tolerance.
Which includes family separation.
The same as is with every U.S. citizen parent gets arrested when they're with a child.
Zero tolerance was interpreted as the policy that separated children from their
If I get arrested for DUI and I have a young child in the car, I'm going to be separated. When I was a police officer in New York and I arrested a father for domestic violence, I separated that father from his family.
Mr. Homan, with all due respect, legal asylees are not charged with any crime.
When you're into the country illegally, it's violation 8 United States Code 1325.
Seeking asylum is legal.
If you want to seek asylum, you go through the port of entry, do it the legal way. The Attorney General of the United States has made that clear.
Okay.
That was 2019. So, sir, do you anticipate more challenges from House Democrats as 2025 nears?
Oh, exactly. They'll be trying to film, a crying female or crying child saying how racist and inhumane we are. But, like I said, we're going to concentrate on public safety threats and national security threats first. But look, you notice no one talks about the family separation that happened under the Biden administration. They lost track of 300,000 children that were smuggled in this country through the use of cartels away from their families. And now the administration can't even find them. And I guarantee many of these children are in forced labor. We've already found some in forced labor. Some are in forced sex trafficking. Some are living with pedophiles. They're living a life of hell every day. And President Trump's committed to trying to find these 300,000 children. They never talk about the family separations of the thousands of angel moms and dads whose children they buried because their children were murdered by someone that's in the country illegally. They never talk about that. But we're going to talk about it. We'll be real transparent during this operation. We got 3 rails we got to take care of. Number 1, we're going to secure that border. Number 2, we're going to run this deportation operation. And number 3, we're going to try to find these 300,000 missing children in the United States and get them back with their families.
Also, there were some statistics that came out last week that New York City is home to over 58,000 criminal migrants. Those are statistics right from ICE. And 1,000 gang members are included in that list as well. Do you start in a place like the Big Apple and go after some of these that you know are out there already through your ICE data?
We got 24 field offices throughout the United States. Every field office is going to start on day one, game on day one. And New York City is one of them. We have a field office in New York City, and it is a target-rich environment. When I say target-rich environment, as you just said, a lot of illegal aliens with criminal convictions or pending criminal charges. And I'm hoping the state of New York, the city of New York will help us because, like I said, we're going to prioritize public safety threats, and I would think any elected official, regardless if you're a mayor or a governor, would want public safety threats taken out of your communities. We like access to Rikers Island. We used to have agents at Rikers Island 24/7. We took hundreds of illegal aliens arrested for public safety threats out of Rikers Island when they were done with them, but now we're not allowed in Rikers Island. So we need to get back in these jails. The jails are the first place we need to get into because they've already made the decision to lock this bad guy in a jail cell because obviously he's a public safety threat. Give us access to that person when you're done with them. And not only remove them from the jail, we'll remove them from the community, we'll remove them from the country and make your community much less dangerous.
And just to follow up on that, because taxpayers are paying for those criminals to be in those jail cells, but you talk about that relationship with law enforcement and you're going to need access to those jails. What about some of these states where maybe they're Democratic-led and they're not going to allow you that access? How do you get in there to get rid of some of those people?
Well, that's going to be up to the Department of Justice. Now, we'll file, I'm hoping the Trump administration will be filing another lawsuit against sanctuary jurisdictions. But in the meantime, here's your choice. Let us into the jail, arrest the bad guy when you're done with him. Either that, you're going to obviously release him to the street, which means I got to send officers into your neighborhoods. So, you know, they're screaming and yelling. They don't want all these officers walking through their neighborhood. But guess what? When you don't let me in the jail to arrest the bad guy in the safety and security of a public jail where we know we don't have access to weapons, you're going to release him, a knowing public safety threat, back in the community. That means I got to send a whole team to look for him. And when we find him, and we will, he's probably been with others that are in the country illegally. They're going to be arrested too. So less officers in your jail means more officers in your neighborhood.
You know, we've covered a number of stories that feature violence on behalf of migrants here illegally, but associated with gangs, specifically the Tren de Aragua Venezuelan gang. How has that changed since the last time you served within the Trump administration? How much could this sort of complicate the removal of some of these individuals that would have ties to some of these gangs?
Great question, and that's probably my biggest concern is that there are a lot of criminals. And when they open this border up and let millions of people in that weren't properly vetted, because we don't have criminal data from these other countries, and so a lot of criminals cross that border and release in the United States. Very violent criminals like the Tren de Agua international gang. It makes the job for ICE officers much more dangerous. So again, if we were able to get these people in a safety and security county jail, it's safe for everybody. But now that we're forced to go into neighborhoods to arrest somebody on his turf who has access to who knows what weapons, and we've already seen many cases, they're carrying semi-automatic weapons, automatic weapons. I will go to bed every night praying for the safety and security of not only the community, but the ICE officers who put themselves in harm's way to arrest these people. It's a dangerous job, and this administration, because that open border, has made that job much more dangerous. But we have to do it. We're going to do it. So, got to look over these agents because they're going to be in harm's way.
I understand detention centers are going to be a big part of this too, likely at the southern border. How quickly can those detention centers be set up and built?
Well, as quick as we can, because I think the president would declare a national emergency when we get these things put up pretty quickly. But there are thousands of empty ICE beds right now. That's what people, don't know. Right now, there are thousands of empty ICE beds already paid for at about $127 a night. But this administration will put them in a hotel room at $500 a night. And why? Because if you're in an ICE detention facility, you get a hearing within 40 days, which means in 40 days, you'll get a decision, 9 out of 10 be order removed, and ICE will deport them. However, if you release them in a non-custodial setting in a hotel room, they might not have a hearing for 3 to 4 years. And that's exactly what this administration intended to do.
Our border correspondent, Jason Jones, often provides us updates of what's going on beyond our borders. And there was a question about what might happen once you go in and you find these criminal aliens and attempt to take them out of the country. But what about if Mexico doesn't want to accept these individuals? And so that leads me to wonder, what sort of relationship would these partnerships happen between leaders of Mexico, even the leader of Canada here? You have to think about the northern border, too. Will these countries be willing to accept migrants who crossed into the U.S. illegally, but take them back into Mexico for perhaps another remain in Mexico policy?
Well, I think there's this, are they willing to accept them or will they accept them? I think they'll be less willing to accept them, but I think they will accept them because President Trump's a strong president. and he's going to hold Mexico and Canada responsible. Look, Mexico didn't want to be in the Remain in Mexico program under Trump, but they did it. They didn't want to put military in their northern southern border, but they did it. It's going to take a strong president. And look, it's against the law in Mexico to traffic in women and children, but they've allowed it. It's against the law in Mexico to transit through that country if you're a national from another country like Central America without a transit visa, but they allowed it. So President Trump's going to demand they enforce their own laws and help us secure that border, or there'll be consequences applied. He proved that in the first administration, and I'm certain that he will do it in the next administration.
I want to ask you real quickly about this, the ICE portal app, because there's been some reporting on this, that the current administration is trying to get this app up and running. There's been some issues with it, some glitches, and it allows immigrants or illegals to bypass the in-person checks with their local ICE office. How much is this going to complicate things for your mass deportation plan?
It's going to complicate it greatly because we'll have less information to run down. There'll be less of a digital footprint for us to get information on who they release in the United States. Again, you would think after the damage they've done to this country, creating the biggest national security vulnerability this nation's seen since 9/11, that they would finally throw their hands up in the air and say, okay, we've done enough harm. It's time for us to, to back off. But they're not. They're going to continue this harm until January 20th. And it's unfortunate because, again, they've released a lot of public safety threats in this country, knowingly and unknowingly, because they're not vetting these people responsibly. So I can't believe they're still doing it. But again, January 20th, there's a new sheriff in town, and we're going to secure the border, and we're going to run the biggest deportation operation this country's seen just because of the amount of illegal aliens with final removal orders that have to leave. And look, Secretary Mayorkas, even though I have no respect in the man, he's testified numerous times. For those that don't qualify for asylum, will be immediately removed. Now, he didn't do it, so we'll do it for him.
Yeah. Well, a lot will change in January, and you're giving us a preview, sir. Thank you so much for spending time, part of your morning with us. That is incoming border czar Tom Homan. We appreciate it.
Thank you so much.